guys and girls. Welcome back to another episode of spaceexplr. Today is a great episode with a great guest. We didn't talk about, prior to me starting this, interview recording a lot, but I'm looking forward to going in detail with this man about his personal hobbies, astrophotography, landscape photography. We're going to be going into multiple directions today. And his name is Shikhar Gupta. So he's professionally a data engineer, and he's an avid traveler and an amateur astrophotographer with a strong liking for night skies and landscapes. So being an overnight ride from the Himalayas, he can be called more of a travel astrophotographer who loves to travel to pristine skies to escape the city lights and capture the photons emanating in the distant blobs of dust. I love the way he puts out things, very eloquent. So that's awesome. So Shikhar, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it again.
Yeah, it's the pleasure all mine. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Look, beautiful place you're living in. You mentioned just over right, just not far from Himalayas, right? So
Uh,
where are you based out? Where do you
so
live?
currently my hometown is in Lucknow. That's a town in northern India. So that's a major town in northern India. So if I were to travel to Himalaya, it's more like a 12-hour ride from my home. So the closest places to the like pristine skies in the Himalayas would be around 12 hours from my place. So
Uh,
around 400, 500 kilometers out there.
it sounds like it's a right place for a lot of people who are, during these times they love to travel, so you just have
So
the perfect spot.
yeah, so this is more like a foodie junction, the place that I live in, than an astrophotographer's paradise. But yeah, traveling from here is pretty easy. So like we have all the modes of conveyance and everything, so it's pretty easy to travel.
That is awesome. Okay, so look, I don't know if we want to talk about you being a data engineer and how is that aligned with everything you're doing, But look, where does your personal passion started for the photography? Just like where you was young kid, maybe you can remember the story or how you get involved with it.
Yeah, so like talking about how astronomy came into my life, it was I think in class fifth or sixth maybe, like when I was in fifth or sixth standard.
Mhm.
So skies like got the better side of me. So like the first times I saw Jupiter through a telescope, those were the moments that would be called the like moments that where it all began. So like over a period of time, it all like came along. Then while doing engineering, I was pretty much out of touch with astrophotography or like with photography at all. So photography began almost around 3 years. Like yeah, it's 3 years prior to this year. So around in 2018 when I bought my first camera. So it
Mhm.
came as a consequence of traveling to places and everything. So it began there. I was a shitty photographer at that time, and then with time, I honed my skills, I'd say. And now then, astrophotography, I bought my first star tracker the last year, like while we were in lockdown. So back then, it started, and then the deep sky things started coming together
Got it.
the last year.
So that's interesting because like while you're traveling the Himalayas, and I'm pretty sure you're seeing a lot of different things while you travel as well. And I'm just always curious why people pick specific hobbies because you can probably choose so many more different hobbies. You can choose fishing over photography.
Mhm.
Once you're traveling, there's a few rivers. Okay, I'm just gonna take just fish. But now you're choosing this, and I think it's a great thing because you're exposing the beauty of Himalayas, of your travels, of the night sky again to the people with social media, and that's
Mhm.
inspiring more than fishing or some other hobby. Again, I'm not discrediting those people who have these hobbies, but it's just it's really great because like space is being one of the frontiers. I think it's kind of the final frontier, and like so I'm just a huge fan of everybody who is involved in these type of hobbies. So like what would you recommend for people like who wants to get started just on photography, just overall? Like, do you
Mhm.
need a particular like skills? Do you need to go to Udemy, or you just need to have a passion and any type of digital camera? Like, what do you need?
Mhm.
What a combination of things.
So with the kind of technology that we have in phones right now and with the kind of technology that's coming up, I don't think you would always need a very professional camera or anything, or like you need very specific skills or anything. I think it's more like a point and shoot, like start doing somewhere, then you'll actually like learn to criticize your images over time. So you'll see, okay, I click this image, and then you will see a lot of more images from that place. So that's how it happened for me. Like the thing is to keep experimenting. So
Mm.
always being open to like new things, like never close out your mind. That's the only thing that I'd say that works for like any profession, I'd say.
Mhm. So, like, do you believe that you need a again skill? Like, cause I'm just scrolling down to your Instagram to the photos because I think you have how many posts do you have? Let me just see,
I think
400
it's 400. Yeah,
over 400 posts. So let me see if I can scroll back fast enough. But and by the way, your Instagram link is going to be included in the show notes. So I just want to ask, like, do you need to have a certain like lens personally, the way you look at things to capture these amazing photos, or do you think anybody can do that without understanding the way things are supposed to look like when you're taking a picture? Like, or do you believe you're supposed to have some sort of a creativity already before you get involved with the photography?
so what I feel currently is like once you start doing things, you actually like start to dive deep into things. You like try to how understand how the things work, how things come together. So like when I started off, I don't think I had any knowledge about photography as a like hobby or like as a professional or like anything about the techniques of that. So it was more like I see this scene, I find it beautiful, I capture it, that's it.
Hmm.
At times it came out good, at times it was like horrendous, that I'd say. And then with times I got more into the techniques, like understanding how the basics of photography work, the ISO aperture and things like that. Also, like this is worth mentioning that most of the like photographs on my feed, especially landscapes ones, are from a very basic kit lens. So that's the lens that you get with the camera bundled in. I didn't use any lens or like any specialized lens, any prime lens. So like I'm not saying I'm very good or anything, but the thing is like you can do much better than you think that, with very basic things. So it's more about like how open are you to learning things. So if you
Yep.
like get hooked to things that okay, I'm done, I'm the best, I'm like there's nothing more to learn, so then it's the end of the journey basically. So you
Yep.
have to be open to learn more. So I won't say that I've done a lot, I'm still learning, and I'm like that's a long journey for me right now, as
Gotcha.
I say it.
So now I'm at the bottom of your Instagram, and I see the first picture was taken January 22nd, 2018, and it's a picture of a pigeon that
Yeah.
it flies low. So I think that picture is better than any of the pictures that I take in my personal career. Like, and I'm not a photographer, but look, just like taking something with a phone or just with a camera, I think that's so much better than anything that I did. And you talking about seeing something that you think is beautiful and it's worth taking the picture of. So how do you determine like what is the right thing? Again, just looking by visually, there's so many different things happening. How do you choose what is the right picture and the right moment to capture that piece?
So it could be different for everyone, and like I totally am of the opinion that it should be different for everyone. So something that appeals to me shouldn't be appealing to someone else, or
Hmm.
it might not. So it's more like a probability that it will.
Yep.
So for me, it's more like how much of a difference can I see it from like a common man's perspective. So suppose if I put myself in the boots of a fellow traveler who's not clicking, who is not like shooting, so can I see something special that I might be able to put out? So can I see a frame that couldn't be like that could be hidden, or like that might not be very obvious? So like that's what the difference between a common man's vision and my vision would be. So that's how I'd like to put it.
And would you prefer shooting? I mean, what objects? Because I know you do a lot of landscaping, as I see it on Instagram. So now with all the career, like with all the skills that you have grown like through all these years, like what's your favorite? Is it the astro part, or is it the landscape still, or maybe you have a particular objects, like the mountains or the rivers or something that you like shooting the most?
So for the landscapes, I think I have a bias towards mountain. I won't deny that.
Yeah.
So you won't hardly see any of the beach images or any other images apart from like mountains. So that there would be hardly any, I guess 5 or 6 at max. So mountains, I hold a bias towards mountain. But apart from that, the best thing about astro and landscape photography is that they are done during very different parts of the day. So I can be doing both, and I won't say like I'll choose one over the other because it's not worth it. Because night appeals to me like more than anything else. So
Mhm.
because night is a hobby that has been like kindled in me since like around, I'd say, 15 years now, 16 years now. So that's a hobby and that's a childhood passion that I have. So maybe that's one thing, but still landscape is something that I'm good at and I'd like to keep improving on that. So
Mhm.
landscapes are always going to be there. The
Gotcha.
new thing that I'm like focusing on, like you might see more of on my later trips, would be something of nightscapes and deep skyscapes. So
Mhm.
that's something that's got my fancy a lot, since like combining the night sky with the foreground is something that's been catching my fancy lately.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen these images of the kind of landscape, and the half of it is the Milky Way. You can see that, so
Hmm.
it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. So, and do you do the same photography of the mountains and of the landscape, the same using the same equipment for the astrophotography as well, or is it different?
So it's mostly the same, but the lenses at times would be like more specific to astrophotography. For example, I use a small telescope, William Optics Zenith Star 61. So
Mhm.
for nightscapes, for the deep sky objects, then I usually use most manual lenses for that, for nightscapes, because you don't need autofocus at night, and that's pretty much useless over there. So the prime lenses and the flat optics, that's what I prefer for the night. For the day, it's more like more dependent on the focal length of the lens than on the actual how fast it is for landscape. At times you need that fast lens as well, but still most of the times you can get by with f3.5 f4. So that's not a very hard to do.
Mhm. So, like, do you have any plans to upgrading equipment, buying a telescope? Like, is that in your personal plan at some point?
So I actually did a whole lot of upgrades for like in the past 6 months, I'd say. So getting a couple of lenses, I bought a new camera for landscape specifically, and
Mhm.
then dedicated the old camera totally towards deep sky images and astrophotography in general. And then I also bought the scope that I said, the William Optics Star 61. So that was also bought in the past
Mhm.
6 months only. So it's been a whole lot of investment in the past 6 months when I am at home working remotely. So that's how it's going right now. So currently, the only thing that I'd get would be probably a light pollution filter, enhance or anything. But that's still down the line, 3 or 4 months down the line at least.
Got it. So just by looking at your post, like, do you feel like you're gonna transition like fully into astrophotography at some point, or you're still gonna keep, just keep it a mix, or because looking by the just by the number of likes, if we can differentiate again, you being a data engineer, maybe that type of data is going to tell you something, but for me, just looking at the likes, basically the simple data, it shows that like at least 3 times more likes per image versus, let's say, landscape versus astrophotography, which astrophotography like picture gets 3 times more likes and engagement. So would you say you would like just put more work just like that to the audience, more astrophotography related, or is going to be still a mix of both?
So, uh, like if I put it out, I'd say likes won't be the first thing that I'll like use to judge what kind of image I'm creating. So the thing is that I feel I'm better at landscape photography, but the thing is, a lot of people do landscape photography, so you won't see a
Hmm.
lot of people doing deep sky photography.
Yep.
So deep sky photography is kind of what makes me unique in a certain subset of the people and among the followers that I have. And then another thing is like landscapes like mean to me in a very different manner than what night means to me. So landscape is more like about, so most of the images that you see are from a moving vehicle. I didn't stop the vehicle. I just was as a traveler and I was like shooting from the window. So it was more like documenting a place and like keeping it as a memory for me. So landscapes are not going to stop for me. It's always going to be mixed. Maybe sometime later when I see that I'm much better than what I'm right now in astrophotography, might be that I might have a dedicated page for that or something, but
Mm-hmm.
that's nothing that I've thought of right now. And obviously, like it could be more like it's gonna mix, but I might actually like like as I've been doing the past 18 or 19 posts from the latest place that I've been to, Spiti Valley. So I might actually like group it into series and like have them together rather than like being spread out throughout the page, or it's like a random mix. Not so it might be more like a specific set of 6 images from deep sky images or nightscapes, and then 5 or 6 from landscapes. So in a particular manner series, that's one thing that might happen very recently.
Mhm. So when you do the traveling, do you plan out like where you're gonna go and like how do you plan? Because you know, as you know, I told you that before. There's a lot of people during these times they
Mhm.
you know the van life. You know, this situation is very popular right now. A lot of people I know in my community, they're like, okay, I'm gonna build a van, gonna travel, take the images of the you know of the space, which again is a fun thing to do. So how do you go about making that decision where you're going to go? Do you have a specific kind of process to pick this specific location? So maybe we can talk about some future near future places that you're
Mhm.
going to go and visit.
So if I were to say like how do I choose places, the bottle scale of the place is a must. So it should be at least a bottle 3 or bottle 2. That's that kind of place, because pristine skies are one of the major reasons for traveling, because cities you can't actually see a like star over here right now, because it's so much of haze, it's so much of light pollution that you can't see anything.
Yeah.
So bottle skies and moon phases are two things that are the first things that I keep in mind, like while planning a date or something around which I'm going to travel. Then choosing a place is more like how long of a trip I'm planning, of like what purpose. So for the past 2 trips, it have been more like a vacation. So I've been working in the day and like traveling in the night and like traveling over the weekends. So that have been more like it. And for vacation, I prefer something that I've known and which I'm more familiar with. So two places where I know a lot of people and where I'm very familiar with were like Kausani is a small hill region in Uttarakhand over here. So that totally faces the Greater Himalayas, the major peaks of Himalayas. So 7,000, 6,000 meter peaks. So you have a very beautiful view across the horizon. And then night skies are like it's a bottle 3 zone, so you have a very good night sky as well. Then in Spiti, I've been there twice, so I know the people around there, and I know like, okay, I don't need to scout a lot. I need to like have that freedom to like just go and set up my equipment and then sit inside, because it was like extremely cold, -20, -22 degrees outside. So
Well,
in that cold, you won't actually want to have that backpacker life anymore. You want to have that comfort as well, to have a chimney that warms you up. So
yes.
so
So this
so
is so this is sorry so for interrupting. So this is exactly what I wanted to ask you because you travel these remote places, remote locations. So do you like sometimes go just with a backpack and a tent, or you go again with the locations that you know they have hotels or hostels to stay in? Like, do you do both, or now you go just okay? I need a warm place to stay in because I cannot stay outside.
so it's more like a mix of both. So camping has been there, but it's not a lot, I'd say. So also instead of hotels or hostels, I prefer homestays, staying with the locals, cause one, that's more economic. Two, you get a better feel of the culture of the place.
Hmm.
So for a landscape photographer, you get to know a lot of hidden locations that a common traveler might not know. So that's the benefit of that place. Also, like the past 2 trips have been more like 50 days or 40 days long. So you need to have that stability as well, because you need a good decent internet connection as well to work remotely as well. So there are a lot of factors that come in, but the major would be like depending on how many days do I have and for what purpose am I traveling. So if I'm taking a leave, I might be all out on a backpack trip, solo traveling, like camping over places, hiking, trekking. That might be more of a thing. But if I'm going on a vacation, I might choose something like a more somber place to stay, where I have ensured like at least the basic amenities are there. So for a longer stay.
Hmm. So
So like where I can charge my batteries over a month or so, because you can't actually charge your batteries on a backpacking trip.
yeah, so again, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people watching these episodes who are based, who live in cities most of the time, probably. And again,
Mhm.
for people in cities, is like backpacking in a remote places, just like it doesn't have to be Himalayas, but anything
Mhm.
remote, maybe in the forest, it could be at least a little bit dangerous, at least to some degree. So like, do you do the research? Is there any type of danger animals? Is that a dangerous place? What about the avalanches and things like that? Like, how do you pick, like, if it's a camping
Yeah,
location, how do you pick that it's a safe place to kind of to stay in?
yeah. So those things are mostly like you can actually achieve them by talking to locals,
Okay.
because I actually don't carry a lot of tents and everything. So I
Hmm.
carry very basic gear, and like most of my space is taken by my gear. So I have
Hmm.
at least two bags for my gear. So the scope, the lenses, the cameras, everything. So they are just two bags over there, and then a one small bag for my clothes and everything. So it's mostly like talking to locals and the people who have been guiding on the treks and everything. So they have the best spots available. You can't like they have the arrangements for the permits as well. So you don't actually need to like plan a lot of. But for photography specifically, you need to actually scout a little. So you can do some like pre-scouting, I'd say, over Google Earth and everything. So
Hmm.
because Google Earth gives you street view, so you can actually have a
Yeah.
decent idea of like what you can see from the place and like what are the directions that are open. So suppose if I want to shoot in north, so I would want my knot to be open, and particularly like while doing deepscapes or anything tracked, you might want your knots like to be open. You don't want a shut off knot because you have to like pull a line using the pole star.
Hmm.
And then a lot of also depends on like what you want to shoot. So if
Yeah.
you're like what's up in the sky at that time. So those are factors that I actually use to like plan where I'm going. So I might not go to a place where I have south blocked when I'm in the Milky Way season.
Hmm.
So so
So,
that's
and do you travel by yourself most of the time, or do you have a second person who goes with you?
So it's more like public transport most of the time. So public conveyance is pretty good away.
But do you go yourself, or do you go with a
But
friend? Just
no,
yourself?
no, it's mostly self, but at times I do lead some groups as well. So just taking a few people who are interested to travel with me on my trips. So that's also one way to like get to travel to one point from point A to point B in a much more economic manner.
Got it, got it. So where's all these projects? Because again, like there's a lot of beautiful images that you have on Instagram, and of course the website 500 px.com, which of course is going to be in the show notes. Like you have quite a following, on social media as well. But again, that's what you said. You don't measure things like that by the following, probably, but the likes. But still, like people, they engage with your content, they like it because that's how people consume all these images right now these days, through social media. So I guess it's just some way to show by this simple data that people like it. So where are you planning to take these projects? Like, is there a next step for you personally, or just you're gonna continue to do this type of work?
So considering like what I'd call my next step would be something like to have workshops. So because I meet a lot of people who don't know where to start, and like
Mm,
they want to imagine night skies, but they don't know like what's there in the sky at that point. So
yeah.
some very basic workshops. Also like things like post processing, especially in landscape as well. So like night sky post processing, like there are a lot of tutorials for that, like available, very straight workflows. But for landscape, it's like much more wider options over there, because
Mm,
there are a lot of options that you can actually do. So that makes it a whole lot more confusing than a very specific workflow over there. So it's more like a diving into my techniques that I'd say like what I use to achieve decent images that I have. So that might be next step, but that's like all dependent on the COVID situation that's like going on. Because
yeah.
COVID has started over again in India. It's like peaking like even worse than previous times. So it's more like stay at home right now before, or at least up to the time that I'm vaccinated. So
Mm.
let's hope.
Well, it could be achieved remote. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would join you, same as here, on Zoom, and by
Mm,
sharing the screen, you can teach a lot of people. So like because I'm sure you get a lot of probably DMs on Instagram asking people,
mhm.
like, what people ask you the most when it comes to your work. Like, is there any specific like one, two, three like questions that people ask you the most about your work?
So if I were to like group them together, so it would be more like about the equipment that I use, which
Mm,
is I think a pretty, not the question that actually like affects my imaging the most.
okay.
But still, that's one question that I get the most. Then it's at times it's about the locations and the trips that I'm planning. So like from like what place did I capture image for someone who's going out of the place. So there's this paragliding spot in Beer. So I have been there around like 8 or 9 times. So I clicked a lot of images from there. I like made half of my gallery could be from there, I'd say. So at least from the past 1.5 years or so. So a lot of people ask me, so like, what would be better spots to get images from there? Because that's not a widely popular spot that you can actually look up on Google and say like, okay, I'll get this from here. So those are mostly 2 or 3 most popular questions that I get. But then there are a lot of others as well, like about some specific processing technique or like some specific software or plugins that I use.
Mhm.
So those are the mostly questions that I get.
So what do you use for landscape photography? Because as you know, like I talk with a lot of astrophotographers, and of course there is PixInsight, Photoshop, like the different options
Mhm.
for that. And what you're saying is like for landscaping it works different. So can you still use the Photoshop? I'm pretty sure for landscaping. So is there any specific? No, because you're shaking your head to say no.
No, no,
This
no.
is
I'm using Photoshop for everything right now. So
okay.
it's
Gotcha.
the go-to plugin, go-to tool for me right now. So I also use Lightrooms for initial corrections and profile corrections on landscape images as well. So Lightroom is like around 10% of my workflow, I'd say, and 90% of my workflow is done on Photoshop, which was like around the same time that I bought the tracker that I got proficient in Photoshop and say like, okay, I can now do, might be starting post-processing deep sky images as well. So then I process some data, initial data, the free data that was available as well. And then I got more on hands-on with the images that I captured. And so even today I was like restacking those images that I got from a terrace in a water lit zone, seeing what I could actually like salvage from them. So also for stacking in astrophotography, I also use astropixel processor because that gives me much better light correction, light pollution correction. So that's one of the reasons that I love astropixel processor. And Photoshop is one thing that's like a constant in every imaging workflow that I have. Also, like if I were to talk about the plugins, then the astronomy tools action set is one of them. And then I use HLVG as well for Rasta Lasta Green for removing the green gradient and everything in astrophotos. Then there are few plugins as well, the free plugins as well that are available. So Jimmy McIntyre's collection is free. So Easy Panel is one. So that I use for some specific tools such as the Dodge and Burn tool and for luminance masks. So that's where I use those as well.
So you being a data engineer, like being on a kind of IT side or on a science side a little bit
Mhm.
as well. So do you look at the softwares like during these times, the amount of softwares and software companies that brand new that coming up, it's a lot. It's a lot because the
Mhm.
COVID in the COVID times, the companies that thrive and succeed and continue to do that is the ones that are online, kind of online businesses. And of course,
Mhm.
that will come back to softwares, anything type of online services. And do you see any type of softwares that are kind of brand new that maybe a lot of people don't use that would be great for astrophotography or photography? Like I'm talking about something based like machine learning or AI based that will make things easier for the beginners, because again it could be
Mhm.
like even though it's Photoshop, it's not that difficult comparing to PixInsight. Let's say for
Mhm.
astrophotography, it's still a steep learning curve. I'm talking about with a few clicks you can do a pretty similar job what Photoshop can do.
I like I haven't seen anything like I've like pretty I'd say rigid in my workflow that I haven't explored a lot of options in that side of like tech.
Hmm.
But Photoshop had some things that I'm not very proud of, or like I won't say like I'd be using them like sky placement and everything. So that's more like for landscape photographers that makes the sky looks good, but I won't be some that won't be something that I would be recommending because that takes the like fun of photography away.
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
then, like I think most of the tools that you use have AI and machine learning built in to some extent.
Hmm.
Even I think astropixel processor because until unless you can actually make some judgments based on the selections and everything, you can't actually say that okay, you'll be able to correct this image. So it's either your brain or it's the software doing. If it's the software doing, there's some sort of intelligence that's going on.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it might not be the very usual algorithms that are going in, but still that's what you can call intelligence.
Very true.
So
Yeah.
so most of the tools that you use today have that built in for up to some extent. So like I said, astropixel processor uses a very good light pollution correction algorithm. I don't know if it's like based on AI or machine learning, but still it does a pretty good job. And it's like you have to draw some rectangles over the image and it does the job for you. You don't have to do any parameter tuning for that. Then that would be one software that I could actually even suggest for like basic to see like what you've got in the image at a very basic level. So you can actually, and that's how I use it to see the kind quality of data that I have. I extract the images and just auto stretch it and remove the light pollution, see like what is the kind of image that I have. I process it later, sometime later in Photoshop, but that's the first impression of the quality of data that I have. And like, do I need to shoot more or do I need to like, okay, say this is okay, this is what I wanted, and I need to like dedicate more time on some other target. So that's one thing that I use as well. So probably Astropixel processor is the one for that. Also, for panoramas, I'd say Hugin is a like does an excellent job for panoramas. So I think also it's also like dependent on some sort of an intelligence tool or something, but its stitching algorithms are like near perfect, much better than Lightroom or Photoshop that I've ever seen.
Mhm. So when it comes to your own personal like journey and things that you've been learning yourself, is
Mhm.
it the mainly the way you consumed all the information and learned yourself? Was it through the books, through the like YouTube videos, any particular courses? Like what do you think is a great way, or maybe some free resources, materials for people to learn from, landscape or either astrophotography?
So YouTube is always the go-to place for like any of the photography thing, I'd say.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you actually get to like dive deep into insights through a lot of blogs as well. So
Hmm.
at times there are not a lot of videos about things on YouTube, very specific things. So for example, there's this thing about star detection. Before I was using starnet. So when you have like oblong stars, starnet does a like, I won't say a very good job over that. So for that, how do you reduce the star size and everything and like make images look cleaner? So there are not a lot of YouTube videos over that as well, or at least the videos that you find like don't work as good for you as they were working on the like the screen of the developer who was showing. So you get to read about a lot of forums, a lot of blogs. So that's one place that helped me a lot. So Stargazers Lounge was has been a great help for me, from gear to photographic techniques and everything. Then there are a lot of photographers who do these like free webinars before launching a masterclass or something.
Mm.
So although it's not very comprehensive or very expansive, I'd say, but still you have a fair idea of like what's about the workflow, about the kind of thing. You actually learn something, like
Yeah.
no matter how small, like even 30 minutes video from a great photographer can teach you a lot of things, or like at least give you a better insight on something. Then another thing that helped me a lot was like playing around. So noise was one thing that's always been any astrophotographers havoc. So how do I reduce noise? Maybe at times with certain loss of sharpness as well. But playing around with the noise reduction curves and the blending modes and the opacity layers and the mask, like they did teach me something new over time. So also like books of greats like Ansel Adams, his autobiography is like a masterclass. You learn so much from that book and so much insight from that book as to how you look at photography.
Mm.
So that's one book that I'd recommend to any landscape photographer. Like no matter if you're like doing black or white colored or like whatever his genre is, but on photography as a whole, he's a legend. So
Hmm.
that that I'd say would be more like a holistic approach towards photography. And you don't need to do this in one day or 1 month or even a year. Like you can take your time, you can like go at your own pace and see how
Yeah.
you like come up. That's it.
Exactly. So, like, I definitely agree with the workshops. And look, we're gonna be waiting here for your personal workshops, coming up, because I think it's probably one of the greatest ways to learn. Because look, when you have all the free resources, like you mentioned, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can find the ebooks like for free online. You can find
Mhm.
video material like podcasts, blog posts, like everything. A lot of content is free, but there is a
Mhm.
problem with that. When you don't pay for that, you feel like, okay, whatever, it's like, I'm going to read it, I'm not going to finish reading. But when you paid for the workshop or for the course, it's like, okay, I paid the money, so now I have to finish it, right? So that's a kind of
Yes.
commitment. But the second
Yeah.
thing is, again, the power of the workshops, that being part of them, you can actually engage and ask questions, say, okay, I don't understand, then can you say how this actually work? With the book or with a video, you cannot do that. So I think it's
Obviously.
really great to have workshops. And again, look, we're waiting for those from you. So
Sure. Also, like another thing about that is like at times you don't actually know what's going on in the background. So okay, you use a tool, you don't know how that works and what it's doing. It just does the job as a transient step for what you wanted to achieve, but you actually didn't know what it does. So until unless you don't know about the power of tools and what it actually does and how it does, you can't actually fine tune that tool for your use.
yeah,
So that's one thing that only someone who has experience can tell you.
yeah,
So
exactly. So
so that's
talking
yeah.
about fine tuning the tools, I mean, you, as I said before, you had over 400 posts. And again, I love the
Hmm.
bio that it says nothing interesting in the bio. Check the feed, maybe. I love that. It's a creative stuff right there. I love it. So, look, by looking at the bio, like, do you have anything, like, anything favorites picture type of moment that happened for you that kind of stood out for you personally the most? I'm not looking at the
Hmm.
engagement. Let's forget the likes, right?
Hmm.
Personal stuff. Like, what do you like the most? Kind of top one or three like images that you have on a feed.
Okay, so for Astro, I'd say the image of the Orion constellation that I had, the whole with the Barnard slope and everything. It's not perfect. It's not even close to being perfect. But that was an image that has been on my mind, and I have done so many tries of that image from varying skies. So like in temperatures like -10 and without a track and everything. So that was when that image came out, and like with the colors that I saw, that was one hell lot of an achievement for me. Like it might not be a very great image, but it means a lot for me. Then there's that image. I don't think if I'd be able to find that, but there's this image of a monastery with a, so that's Dhankar Monastery in Spiti Valley, and its background is whole white mountain. It's just a brown structure standing, and that was, I never had like wanted to, or never had that idea that I could get this view of that monastery. And like when I first saw it, I was
Oh, I
like
see that.
totally in awe with that shot. And like it's not just about the shot; it's about the setup. Like when you're in, winters and like braving those winds and everything, and then you see that frame, you see like, okay, this is something jaw dropping. So for landscape, I think that image has to be my favorite. Like I might have clicked much better images than that, but still that has to be my favorite image in all of it.
Got, got it. Okay, good. Look, yeah, there's a lot of great images on. Oh, so I see the Gu Monastery, right?
No,
That's
no,
the.
not the Gu monastery. That's Dhankar monastery.
All right.
Let me
Oh,
see
okay,
if
so
I can pull
let's
it
see.
up.
We, of course, as I said, that Instagram link is gonna be there in the show notes, so you guys can find that. But let's see. I think there's a lot of great images, man. Like a lot, but I do understand again for particular reasons, just like you said. The ones that sometimes they stood out for you personally the
Yeah.
most. So this is awesome. This is awesome. So like, what would you say like about what's happening? Taken into direction into astrophotography and just space. Like, do you like how in depth are you in the, because now you do the astrophotography, so I'm pretty sure like you're reading about certain things, and so
Mhm.
how much you immersed yourself in the subject, and how much do you actually read about the news in space, like what's happening, how much attention are you paying to that?
So I have been in like very interested in theoretical physics since like very young age. So things like string theories and inflation and general relativity have always been like something that always interested me. Like even without the mathematical tools to like understand them, I actually have always tried to understand them at a very basic level.
Mm,
So I've read a lot of books over them. So there's this very good book by Brian Greene, The Elegant Universe. So that book is completely about string theory, and it's such a brilliant read. And it's complicated. I won't say that it's not complicated, but you can actually like manage it without with the layman's knowledge and basic knowledge of physics as well. Then the inflation theory as well. So that's one thing that also has had my like curiosity since the primordial gravitational waves were discovered. Then right now, I think in CERN they have some anomaly where detected anomaly where there could be a sign of a fifth force of nature. So those are the kind of things that are very interesting, and like those are the kind of things that makes you wonder like, okay, so you can't actually stop anywhere. You can't say like, okay, we have the standard model, this is the end. You always know that, okay, this might break, you might find something new, and how do you handle that? How do you put everything in place with the observations that you have and then formulate a new theory with a new anomaly that came in? So that's something that's always intrigued me a lot, and that's I think the case with me in every subject that I do. The curiosity part of things to like not just generalize stuff, to go deep into stuff. So be it algorithms or be it for my professional life, algorithms professional life, and then being reading about anything like CERN paper or standard model of physics. So that's always an interesting thing for me. So photography came much later than all this was going on. This was since like around 7 or 8 years.
Wow, that is great. So you mentioned, the string theory, inflation theory, and now the fifth force of the nature that you're talking about. Of course, I seen it in the feed recently about the fifth force of the nature. I haven't read it yet. Some of those, like we talking about the theory, like the string theory. Again, you talked about Brian Greene. He has multiple books on that. He has TEDx talks. People can go and watch these. So there's a lot of theory. Again, there's not enough facts for now, but all of that sounds, or looks very promising. That it could be that. So, what do you think about the theory of the multiverse? It's kind of in that realm as well. So, what do you think? Is this what's happening, or what do you think about that scenario?
So, theory of multiverse is actually, if you read that the string theory, you see that it's actually a consequence of the string theory being true. So thing is, you might have 10 different dimensions. So for this universe, you might have some dimensions that are in a very small space or microscopic space, as we say, and 4 dimensions, that is the 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time in the micro world. So different configurations of this might be found in different universes, but the thing is, you can't ever prove it because those two universes might never interact. And when you like extrapolate these things, you actually like get to places where you can see getting to things like proving like God. Because suppose in some other universe you have someone who can actually, like, you have beings who can control the configuration of these universes. So basically they can create new universes, which is what God is. So that's all a hypothetical concept, I'd say, of string theory, but you can't actually ever prove it. You can't actually, with the current technology, we can't actually prove string theory as well, because the string particle is like so small, and the kind of energy that's required to actually I'd say to singularize it would be like enormous, and which is not the kind of technology that we have right now. But when you read about those things and you see like, okay, can this ever be possible with observation, or can this ever be observed? If it's observed, then that's like a huge eureka moment for anyone who does. So even when the Higgs boson was discovered, so with the energy fields and everything like matching a particular particle, like I don't think that we can even feel what those scientists felt when they discovered that anomaly. So the kind of discovery that might have been, so it was predicted back in 1967, I think, by Peter Higgs, that field and that particle that gives mass to every other particle. And then when you actually see that coming and materializing in your experiments, that's something that's something, a joy that you can't even express. So multiverse is something that I don't think that we'd ever be able to like prove its existence, but if you can prove string theory, then you might be actually be able to theorize it in a much better format than what it's right now.
Exactly. So another theory, as we talked about, inflation theory, which again we're talking about the Big Bang moment and everything. Because for some time we thought about, okay, the universe expanded, and it kind of started to slow, after,
Mhm.
which of course that's been proving wrong. That we
Mhm.
actually found out that the universe accelerating. So this is I'm kind of founding that. I guess we, as I told you, have all these different theories, and we think,
Mhm.
okay, this is that, but then we found that, okay, maybe it actually different than we thought before. So this is
Mhm.
great. What do you think about the other theory, as some people talking about and saying, okay, maybe we'll live actually in a simulation, that this is kind of like a computer, and we all like put
Mhm.
it here in the computer, and this is the kind of program that we're running, and as you said, there's something behind the scenes happening,
Mhm.
who's actually controlling all the game, all the moves.
So there's one very like I'd say I had this discussion with a friend once. So one of the reasons that we can't actually prove that we're in a simulation right now is the existence of irrational numbers. So how does a computer program ever know that that it's in a computer? Because it can reach the end of its memory. So the irrational numbers being infinite for us right now is kind of a I'd say not a proof, more like uh, it's more like a belief that we are not in a simulation. The proof that we can't find a memory big enough to reach its end. Also, like I said, that simulation can be there given some universe as a being or the set of beings who can actually tune the configurations of the string theory parameters and create new universes out of them, or being so large that are greater than the universe itself. So that gives us then that direction that we might be in a simulation. So that actually gives us that proof that we are controlled by God. We have one God or we have multiple gods. So that's more like hypothetical. I'm more like something that's much more beyond the realm of proving and beyond the realm of actually even an understanding right now, like let alone proving it.
Yeah.
But simulation is something that's more like, okay, it can be, but it's so much towards the impossible end of things that you can't actually say, okay, this spectra is totally a gray spectra, let's leave it for the moment right now.
So do you believe that, if it's not that we, the fact that, let's say, not the fact, not the theory that we're living in a simulation, do you believe that we're going to head there, just by you being a data engineer and seeing where the technology is taking us? Do you believe that at some point we're actually going to be these just data sets that you can download on the computer, and you can kind of live forever? You can use the same data set and install into the new unit, new body, let's call it that way.
Mhm.
So do you believe we're getting heading that direction?
So I don't know, like if consciousness could be like downloaded or uploaded into a system or not, but in the direction that AI is heading, that we might have very intelligent beings as like artificial humans, which are not actually real, which are in the computer. So like somewhat I'd say like what was shown in the movie Her. So that's something that might be reachable in the next 10-20 years at the speed, the kind of computational power that we're growing in, and the kind of advancement of the AI and neural networks part of things. So right now we are not even close to like simulating a percentage of a brain, even like not even 1% of a brain can be simulated. Maybe decision making could be simulated. Maybe you can teach a lot of things. You can actually caption a whole script using just a single neural network, but still we are very far from that place of like having downloading uploading consciousness basically. So artificial beings, maybe we could do it in 10-20 years, but downloading uploading oneself and like breaking the barriers of biological entities would be something that's currently I'd say pretty unreachable at the moment,
It,
like at
it,
least in the foreseeable future.
it's a great topic for the science movies now, right?
Yeah, science fiction at least, yeah.
Got it. So, what do you think? Again, again, another big topic, and I'm pretty sure you have a lot of, just from your job being a data engineer, you're probably interfering with, artificial intelligence, and we talked about it because, again, on a software editing level, or the way we interact in our daily lives via social media, we engage like, but we don't feel it. with this
Mhm.
AI, artificial intelligence. So, and do you believe again, it because for me, I just want to get your own personal perspective as you working in this, full time also, and
Mhm.
having your hands in. Because sometimes when I listen to the certain people, certain groups, and those groups are divided. One group is saying, okay, this is AI is going to be the next best thing for the humanity, and then another group is saying, no, this is going to ruin the life. The genie is going to get out of the bottle. Nobody's going to control it. Nobody's going to look at it right now, because government will pay attention to that, saying, okay, this is kind of, somebody's already take care of that, which nobody doesn't. So do you believe it's going to be a good thing or bad thing, or maybe could be kind of something in the middle that can meet and, can be good?
So it could be a very nuanced opinion from my end, but the thing is, the way the government see AI is more like a controlling mechanism. So, for example, what's happening in China, I'd say would be like face tracking and like actually tracking a person's whole identity and like taking decisions. Then there was this rule in one of the states in India that a person's social media history would be taken into consideration for before giving them passport, which is like
Oh.
utter shit. And then so thing is, there's not always a single opinion that you can have about a thing, because
Hmm.
even dynamite was used for making of roads and was used as a
Yeah,
war weapon as well. So you can't actually say dynamite is good or bad. Like it's
that's
mostly
great.
dependent
Yeah.
on how much regulation can we have over it and how much of a how do we use it. So if we're using it to solve medical problems, we are using AI to like detect cancers in people just through their various scans and the tests and their symptoms over a period of time and improve healthcare for people. It's an excellent tool for us. It can actually like speed up a lot of things. It can automate things for you like
Yeah.
that took maybe days to do, and it could do it in like maybe minutes or hours. So looking at that way like gives you a lot of hope, but looking at the way that things are happening and how the governments are controlling it and how government is using for it's more propagandish ways, it's more like it gives you a feeling of being in 1984.
Mm.
So that book is like a kind of my biggest fear, to live in a society like a totalitarian society
Yeah.
that's molded according to a certain level of people. But yeah, you can actually head in the direction. But given that the kind of stages that we are at in like AI and neural network development, that I won't say that AI on its own would be so self-sufficient to like overtake humans, like not in a foreseeable future and not in the next 20, 30 years, because I don't like what's going in the classified labs or anything, but still still I won't say like we won't be anywhere very close to them. Like we could have very good like accuracy with things or menial tasks, I would say tasks
Hmm.
like identifying and tasks that could be like easing up your lives, but to have something like that could take over humans or that could take over civilization, no, it's not, we're not even close to that.
Yeah,
It's like
but you're
how we
saying
put it use.
but you're
Yeah,
saying 20, 20, 30 years.
yeah, like that depends on how, that depends on a lot of factors. Like
Yeah.
the thing is neural network research was started somewhere around 1950s, so it then stopped, and then with various development it took some space and then stopped again. So you can't even say that it would be going on in the next 20, 30 years. Maybe we find something very like much more better than that. Maybe we could interact with aliens sometime. So you never know what happens. So 20, 30 years is something that depends on a lot of factors, that depends on how things turn out. Maybe like we might not make any like considerable progress in consciousness part of things, but we might have made a lot of progress with how we use like neural networks
Hmm.
and where can we use it. We might have found like totally new use cases that we don't even think about it right now. We might actually be like doing blockchain mining using AI. So
Yeah.
so you can't even say okay like this is pretty certain to happen in 20, 30 years when it's like dependent on research, because research is a very subjective thing that could be dependent on a lot of factors.
Hmm. Got it. Got it. So I love the analogy just you said, talking about the dynamite. This
Mhm.
is exactly what it is. We we don't have the crystal ball. And like with all the people that I talk, sometimes I get some people who are really fixated on their personal like opinion. No, this is like, you don't know, this is going to be that. Like,
Mhm.
how do you know? Like, you don't have the crystal ball. You don't know if it's going to be good or bad. Like, we're just guessing. It's a guesswork.
Yeah, so like it's okay to have a bias towards something, but I
Yeah,
don't think like you can be definite about anything that's not present at least. So or present
exactly.
or past. You can't be definite about future anything.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't know
exactly.
how anything turns out. You might never know, like when the humanity is wiped out by a colliding meteorite over a period of time. It could be next day, it could be 10 years later. So
Yeah.
how do you even say that something's gonna happen?
Exactly. Hopefully not. Hopefully not with the
Yeah,
asteroid. Because
yeah.
that's a look. We
that's
we like
that's
this
an
planet.
apocalypse from science fiction.
Yes, exactly. Look, we like this planet. It's nice. It's nice. It got everything that we need, at least for now. Of
Mhm.
course, we got some problems here on the planet too, and we're looking now in all these different scenarios. Like there is missions who are dedicated to going and actually creating sustainable living on Moon or on Mars. So, what do you think about this idea? Is it good for us to continue to expand in the universe, or this is not the right way to treat the space? This is just from observational standpoint that we're supposed to be doing that, and this is the way to take care of the planet. Like, what do you think this entire approach in exploration?
So exploration, I won't say is like bad. I won't ever say that exploration and like finding alternate words would be bad for us, because the thing is we might actually outgrow Earth very soon with the kind
Hmm.
of population expansion and everything. And like there's a lot of factors to say that we might outgrow Earth, because the rate at which population is growing right now, we might have that point in time in 50 years that we might not have enough resources to sustain the whole population of Earth. So what do you do in that case? You need an alternate planet. You need an alternate inhabitable zone. So and the space on Earth is limited. You can't actually like take away any part of that. And with the growing climatic problems, that space is gonna, I'd say, reduce the inhabitable space at least. So that's good and that should be done, I'd say. But saying that it should be the only priority is wrong, because we do have a planet for which we don't have an alternative at the current point of time, and we don't know till when will we have it.
Yep.
Like we don't know what kind of problems we are going to face on Mars when people land there, because all we have landed over there is rovers. I know we might have very good metrics of every small detail of the planet's atmosphere and everything, but
Hmm.
you don't know a lot of factors and like
Yeah.
a lot of planet's parts, like how are they gonna be reacting to you, like how much can you adapt that in a totally different planet. So that's one thing that's never sure. That's more like, okay, we plan to do this, we are on a very good line and we might be able to do this, but there's always drawbacks. And like
Yeah.
how much can they draw, like how much will it draw it back to you, you never know. It could be 10 years, it could be 20 years of setback.
Hmm.
So we need to take care of this planet. We need to actually be very aware of our actions, every action that we take. Like we need to preserve our land, like. And I don't say that there's a huge lot of good that just we as individuals can do without the governments interfering, but still we can actually make some impact, maybe if not too huge. And the governments, they have a very key role to play in protecting this planet, like to reverse or to, we can't actually reverse right now because we have a threshold that we have to stop. Okay, if you want to keep this land more sustainable, we have to stop at a growth rate of 1.5 degrees Celsius, like a climate growth of 1.5, which we are like, I think tend to like cross by 2030 if I'm not wrong, given the
Wow.
current fuel growth rate. And we need to actually like cut our fossil fuel usage to around 30% of what it's right now, or maybe 10% of what it's right now. I don't remember the exact number, but still
Yep.
it needs to be cut down a lot. And there's a huge fossil fuel lobby that you can't actually like overrule.
So, so the question is, how can that be achieved? Because again, we have this timeline which we're talking about again 9 years from now,
Mm.
and even if it's a 10%, I mean that's a huge number that we're looking globally. So
No. So 10% is 10% of the current total usage. We need to go down to that level.
yeah,
We need to be at our 10% right now of what you're using. So we need to cut down 90%.
So exactly. So we're talking about, like, how do we get the public involved in this? Because I asked the same question to different people, and look, there is always going to be people, who say, look, I want to drive my diesel car, my, gas car. I don't want to go green. I don't want to buy Tesla or Toyota, Prius, whatever you have going on. I want to drive my car. I want to hear the sound of the engine. I'm still going to use the plane. I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to burn the coil, the fuel, whatever I'm using for my fireplace at home. Like, I like the way it is. Like, I don't want to change. I don't want to go to, driving slow, not slow, driving quiet. Like, it's like, I don't want to live in this age. Like, I want to be the way we lived for hundreds and thousands of years. So, like, how do we get public involved with this, and how do we help them to understand that this is actually a problem that could be non-reversible at some point?
So the thing is, you can't actually do that. The thing is, it's more like about incentives. So what is the incentive that you give for people to use that, to give over the current luxuries that they think they have? Or like, how do you change the status quo of a particular topic or about a particular thing? Like, that's what I'm saying, that to help that reverse, it's more like it couldn't be done by a group of people or a single person or a certain individual at any point of time. It has to be from the authorities. It has to be from someone who can actually impose things on people. So if someone wants to drive diesel, make it so expensive that they can't. But before doing that, you need to actually have that backup. Okay, if not diesel, what can I do? So if you don't have that backup and you raise diesel prices up, you actually are making it like you're killing people faster than they should be killed. So because it's not just about diesel is used in a lot of things. So what are the alternative sources of fuel that you have? So if you're saying that my country won't be using thermal energy for electricity generation, then what are the options that I have, and how am I developing it, and how fast am I developing it? So fast is the key over here. Like, how do you actually want to, like, how fast do you actually want to reach that target? Or like, do you want to even reach that target? Because you're getting a lot of money from those lobbies and people who actually afford that, because these are not people with $1 or $2 billion. They are like syndicates, $1 trillion syndicates over there. So how do you oppose them with an energy that's clean? And like, this might seem a lot of conspiracy theory thing, but
there's truth to that.
Yeah, because there have been a lot of hopes, because wind power harnessing was like started way back in 1900s. Then solar energy, maybe it's not efficient, but it could be used as, like, large solar farms could be used. And at least at places where you have lots of solar energy, where you have very less cloudy days, you can actually use that. You can have huge solar farms over there. Like, why create dams when you can actually have that solar farm? You are using almost a similar size of area. Dams are even more vulnerable to, like, I'd say, earthquakes and the landslides and everything. So why, like, put so much money over there? And then clean vehicle, clean energies, there are a lot of options, but are you even boosting those research? Are you even putting money in that research? Because without money, you can't actually do that and get those results. You need that investment as well from the government, from the bodies. And that's not something that we can crowdfund, because research is like a lot.
Exactly. Look, there is corruption is happening on multiple levels. The fact that you talk about, there is huge syndicates who are running these corporations, and for them, they're having so many incentives and benefits, so they don't want to leave this space. They want to continue to grow their own personal assets. They want to continue to buy houses and continue to build their personal wealth. So they don't want to change. They don't want to change. They don't want to go green. And there's that. But we're talking about the smaller level, where people are working on these sites, let's say building a dam or something like that, or, instead of building, because you have companies, you have contractors who are winning these projects. And look, you have a company, so it comes down to the individual people. Like, let's say for a business owner who runs the construction company, and that's what they do, they build dams, so that's, so we have to change like multiple, we have to look from multiple angles,
Obviously.
and there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that has to change. But I think the perspective, first of all. So, and again, and that's why I love people just like yourself who, look towards, astrophotography, because I think that's a huge step for people. And going back to the small data, as we talked about, the likes and engagement, because look, people talk. People say, "Hey, look, have you seen that incredible image of the Milky Way?" Like, kind of, the amount of people. Again, we talked about the light pollution. The amount of people that never seen a Milky Way is actually pretty ridiculously high.
I
So,
think it's 94% of US population that has never seen the Milky Way, and
exactly.
6% of those saw in like the San Francisco earthquake, I think, when there was power lines were off. So that's like 94% of the population who hasn't seen Milky
It's
Way.
crazy. It's crazy.
So
So the fact that you're doing this, I think all the people, including yourself, is making part of that change. So I think that's probably the right angle to take. Of course, we have individuals, like Elon Musk or other people who are all about, okay, going green, reusability, using, battery, solar power, which is great. Like, we don't have a lot of people like Elon Musk, but I'm pretty sure a lot of big companies like Mercedes-Benz or, again, Daimler or, Toyota, anything like that will follow, besides, him, follow the footprints. But I think it will come through a lot of different individuals from on a global scale, just like yourself, who will be like, look, sharing their content on social media and talking about, oh, look, there's a universe, there's this, there's that, there's a problem, globally on the planet. And all people will start to open up, and it will kind of become this thing. Like, now, I don't know how big is that, but when you go to the shop, any local shop, like any brand that you can imagine, you're gonna find anything like NASA T-shirt, NASA socks, shoes, or something like that, and it's being part of the marketing campaign by NASA because they want to get their attention towards projects like Artemis or whatever is happening, Perseverance on Mars. So that's what's gonna happen. Like, people will get used to this thing. They will be like, oh, this is what it is. Like, we're flying to this, Mars. This is what's happening. We have to take care of the planet. We have to go green because of this marketing campaign that's going to be on a global scale because of people just like you.
I so hope that it does, because like that's not an option for us. That's more like a mandate for us that we have to protect this planet.
Yeah.
We don't have an option right now, and like I don't think this is going to be the case at least for at least 10 years, because even after reaching Mars or any other planet, you actually have to, like, to colonize it, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of resources to like pull off. Like, do you have that much money and that much of resources to actually put in there? And like, what is the time frame that we're looking at? So as for the foreseeable future, we have this planet at least for our generation. Maybe for the next generation, we might have some other alternative inhabited places as well. Yeah, so maybe there's a space hotel coming up in 2029, I think. So maybe places like that. So I hope that it does, and like we move towards the green and much more cleaner future than we have right now.
Yeah, got it. So what about getting the different data set? Because I talk with the people, and I said, look, there's actually two things that we can do. We can either create or change ourselves, which again is a very slow process, because we talked about we have multiple variables that play in this global scale, and making a change fast is really difficult. But what about getting a different data set from third party output? And I'm talking about something extraterrestrial, if it even exists, because like, it's a very interesting topic, and I think it's a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. And again, everybody has their own biases and different opinions on that. But do you believe there is something out there that could be advanced and they could supply us with, again, because every time you're going to see a documentary or something that kind of shows the proof, that there's something out there, there's spaceships, there's no propulsion systems, the way it's work, it's unknown for us. So do you believe that there could be something out there that could supply us with this kind of data set that could change the projection of our planet?
Like, to honestly say that there's something out there, I'd say yes. It's a definite chance. There's something out there, like not even outside the Milky Way, in the Milky Way itself. So because considering there are say 100 billion stars, and like they have multiple planets, multiple stars and multiple planets. A lot of dust is floating around there. We don't know how life came on Earth. So it could be like it evolved from Earth, maybe it came from a comet, like we don't know that. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of ifs and buts over there. But to say like, can it provide something, or like, is there a more intelligent species out there? That could be a little subjective, I'd say, because okay, there might be a species, but can they find us? Or what if like, so when we're looking up in space, we're looking in the past. So
Yep.
how much past are we talking about? Like, suppose there's someone who's around on the other side of Milky Way who's like much more intelligent than us. That's 52,000 light years away. 52,000 light years away, we aren't even in a civilization. Leave aside these carbon footprinters and everything, those terms haven't come into existence even then. We are a green planet. We might be like coping up to the last ice age that came in, and what would we see would be something like, okay, there's something life over there. They have some colonies of around 100 individuals, but are they intelligent? Maybe no. So also like, given the current physics and the physics which is very reliable, traveling at speeds faster than light is something that's still, I would say, not possible. And like, I don't think it's physically possible given the laws of classical physics that are very bound to like observations, because otherwise like muons would never make it to like the surface of the earth. So that's the kind of thing that's there. So even if something 52,000 light years away is trying to send us something, we might be long gone by then. Like
Yeah.
by the time they see us and they see what state we are in, we might be long gone by then.
Yeah.
And then also like, there's one reason why I love this movie Interstellar. So so how we were responsible for solving our own problems. So that was the kind of hope through very warped, in a very warped way, that I'd say. But still, we ourselves placing a wormhole to help us reach different planets is an intriguing, much more intriguing probability than an extraterrestrial helping us. Maybe sometime it can, maybe it will, but this seems like a much more realistic probability than an extraterrestrial for me.
Exactly. Yeah, we have look. There is so many different things that we still don't know about. Because again, the fact that we've been here just a minute ago, just probably a second ago, looking by the
Yep.
universal standards, it's
Mhm.
we still have a lot of things to figure out, and we think we got answers. And sometimes, like I talk with people, as I talked about, they have such a fixed opinions, like, oh no, this is what it is, and I read it on social media, and like we don't know, like we're just doing the guesswork. We think we
Mhm.
understand, we have the theory. 10 years later, oh no, scratch that, there's a new theory. So we're just guessing. So a lot of it is still a guesswork. So we don't even know, like maybe this extraterrestrial life form that we're talking about,
Mhm.
it could be something on a third dimension. It could be something on a level of atom. It could be something completely different. We're talking about, advanced. It could be something that we don't even capable of seeing because they're living in a different
Maybe.
dimension. It could be multiple
Obviously.
things.
Yeah. So like,
Exactly.
yeah, obviously we don't know what that is. So like, I won't ever want to bank on that part. Like banking on like, on a doomsday, I won't bank on an extraterrestrial life form helping us. I would actually find a way to escape that.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
so like, I'd say I'd totally be with you if I were to say like, okay, we don't know what's out there, and like in what form it's out there, and how intelligent, and like how do you judge intelligence? Maybe it doesn't know physics, maybe it knows something else.
Mm.
Maybe it's so adapted biology that it can create new human life forms. So
Mm.
how do you actually say that it's intelligent? So that's
Mm.
something that there's a lot of subjectivity over that. How can it help us? Maybe it has nothing to do with human biology or even earth's biology. It doesn't know the elements that are existing over here. So how does it help us? So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, what is intelligence overall?
yeah.
Intelligence is the way you understand things, and you measure that by the IQ that you have or the university degree. Like, how do you even measure that? So So, but look, again, so it's a very interesting topic. It's a very interesting topic, and a lot
Yeah,
of the
obviously.
topics, like in space industry, are very interesting. And it could be the case, as I mentioned, like us traveling interstellar kind of dimensions. Again, traveling because again, there's another theory about the wormholes, black holes. Is it going to take us to a different part? Again, talking about the string theory or multiverse. Is that going to be it? We're going to propel us into a different type of universe and a different end, like millions of light years away, like who knows. But hopefully we're going to get some sort of a technology, and hopefully faster,
Yeah.
because we still have 5 billion plus years to live here. So hopefully we're going to get more genius type of people, or people like yourself, who will continue to impact all the people, because I think it's going to be definitely a collaborative effort. It's
Obviously,
not
it's
good.
gonna be collaborative. It's
Exactly.
gonna, you
It's
can't
not
actually
going
do
to.
it alone.
Yeah. Oh
So
no, no, no. Elon. People talk about. People put Elon Musk on a podium. We're gonna go to Mars. Like, look, he's gonna do nothing by himself. Like, he has SpaceX has probably, I don't know the number, probably 10,000, 20, I don't know, amount of people who are
mhm,
smart, intelligent. Engineers, software developers. Like, probably majority of them design. Anything. So it's going to be a definitely collaborative effort, and I see a lot of brand new startup companies in the space industry starting on multiple levels: software, data, development, engineering. So it's going to be
mhm.
definitely a collaborative effort. Like the
Yeah.
space hotel that you're talking about, it's going to be many, many different companies who will try to achieve that. Brand new space station that we're going to build is going to come through the private industry. So look,
Mhm.
it's definitely great. It's definitely great. So, like, what would you say for the people who are watching, and maybe if they got into this part, if they watched, enough, and they got to this part, like, why would you tell them, like, if they're young, or maybe they're, a little bit older, what would you tell them, like, why is this important, like, when it comes to space exploration, and what would you recommend for people to start to start with?
So to start with space exploration is like something I wouldn't actually recommend anyone to like bind themselves to a particular topic, because there's no one way to help this planet or themselves or this community or this like whole civilization. So it would be more like to find your calling, to like always be open to like understand and like to open to experimenting things. Like be curious. That's one thing that I'd say. That's the only
Mm,
advice that I have to anyone who has to ask me like what should I do next. Like be curious.
be
That's
curious.
your answer. You will find your way.
Got it. And I think that's the right answer, because, as you said, there is no one way. Look, like, we need different people in different sectors.
Mhm.
Starting with data, astrophysicists, scientists, like engineers. So it's just up to you, because again, there is no right formula for this. What do you want to do?
Mhm.
But again, I think the right starting point would be something that what you do,
Yeah.
so and that's what I said, that's why we need those workshops. That's what we
Yeah.
need, to get something that you can become part of, because I think that the
Mhm.
power of community, it's really strong. And
Yeah.
especially when you
Obviously.
have positive people who have this great outlook into what's happening out there on the planet, in the
Mhm.
universe, just like yourself. I think being part of the group, just like if you would continue to grow and nurture that, it could be really great for a lot of people, finding that
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully, like I'll be able to start very soon. And it's
yes.
like a lot of motivation from you. So it's gonna be there soon. And a lot of credit to you.
Look, I'll text you. I'll text you, and I'll pressure
Sure.
you. I'll pressure you. I'll tell, hey, look, when is
Sure.
this coming?
Sure. Sure. I'll be able to have like happy to provide updates to you.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Okay, look, so I really appreciate it, Shikhar. Coming out today, man. It's great fun to meet you finally, as I said. And look, I'm looking forward to having you again on another episode sometime in the future, so we can, dive deep into your workshops or talk about different stuff that you're going to be
Sure.
working on.
Sure. Sure.
It's always good fun to talk with people just like yourself. So
Definitely. It
look,
was fun talking to you.
thank you, guys and girls. Look, we at the end here of the show. So one thing that, as always, I want to ask you, if you share this episode with your friends, it's always great. Great, because sharing this type of information and just letting people know, like, look, these topics are really important. Like, we're not living at the brink of, okay, the space is going to be next thing. We're already living in these times where we have so many different people, organizations, startups, starting different projects, companies in this industry. So become part of that again to some sort of degree through astrophotography, just getting your hands into something, into the projects, being part of something, following certain people just like Shikhar, on social media. Ask him questions, because of course Instagram link is going to be there. Ask him questions about data, any topics that we covered. Maybe you want to ask something else, like make connections with these people, and become part of it. Because again, we talked about it, collaborative effort, so make sure you make those connections. So again, guys and girls, I appreciate you watching today's episode, and as always, I say in that time, and until then, don't forget to keep exploring.